Hey, Josh, you are on the air on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going good. Having a great time.
All right.
What's up?
Cool.
What you want to talk
Good
about?
question. That was
The other one
us.
on the mute.
Doing pretty well. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, so I called, but I realized that the first guy was actually basically saying the same thing I was about to. So
Adam?
I have a friend from
That was a good try.
from the army that was
Okay.
he's super into conspiracy theories, doesn't think we went to the moon, all that stuff.
Okay. And
And,
do you want to know how to better talk to
5G
him
is the
about that?
coronavirus. Yeah, because
Mm.
I've noticed that like I've tried like dismissing things. I've tried like hearing him out. I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere no matter what I do.
Yeah. So I'll give my take first, and then I want to hear Jordan.
Yeah.
So I always advocate for a street epistemology approach, a Socratic method approach, asking people really, defining their beliefs and figuring out why they believe it and what's the best reasons for their belief. So you have the advantage, again, like I was saying earlier, if this is a friend that you can talk to, especially on a regular basis, because if they can show you where they're getting their information from, then you can have a conversation about that source of information. It's one thing to talk about ideas. It's another thing to look directly at where people are kind of getting this from. Now, if he doesn't have a specific source that you want to talk about him with, then again, my recommendation always is it's the what, why, and how. Okay, it's the three questions, starting with the what, defining what that belief is, the why they believe it. What are they using evidence? Is evidence a part of their belief? Did they, what could be a good substitute? And the how, like how could they change their mind about this belief? Is what would convince them otherwise, or what about alternative explanations? And you can use this with conspiracy stuff. You can use this with all kinds of beliefs. There's more. If you go to my personal channel, you can look at that as well, where I have a talk on specifically how to use that model. But also, lots of people have been doing street epistemology for a while, and I just recommend looking at those guys' channels for info. But Jordan, what is your advice for these kinds of conversations?
I would love to have more positive advice. It would be great to do that, but at a certain point, conversation doesn't happen anymore. It's not possible. Whenever it's a little without a common ground, without any kind of common information. In order to have a conversation, the quote is, you have to have a definition of terms. And with a lot of people, we try and have a conversation, but because we don't even agree on what the words mean, then we'll never be able to communicate about it. So for somebody who doesn't believe that the moon landing is going on, you can't explain space. You just can't do it. So it's one of those things where you can find something, but you're not going to be able to talk to them about any of that. Don't even bother with the moon landing is actually real. You're going to lose. Find some bit of something that you guys both agree is real. Once you both agree on something real, then you can have a further conversation. But until then, there's no talking. There's just nothing to talk about.
I agree. Starting with the smaller stuff sometimes is helpful before you get to the bigger stuff. I think that's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I tried starting with the bigger stuff, and he basically believes that in the multiverse theory, and nothing
wrong with that, buddy.
Where people misremember. Well, no, he believes he's from a different universe, basically.
So like an offshoot of the Mandela effect.
Out of place.
Yeah,
to an extreme. So it's really difficult to pin down exactly what he believes, why he believes it, and that kind of stuff.
And
it's really difficult to
that kind of thinking, especially with the Mandela effect stuff. Just the specifics on that is there are people who feel like they remember things differently, and they come to the conclusions that like a more extreme version of the Mandela stuff, what you're talking about, is they actually believe they are from a different timeline. This is something that people don't talk about when they talk about Mandela effect, but there is a subcategory of people who actually believe they're in the wrong place, wrong time. Something happened where they made a switch over to a parallel universe, which is interesting. And it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Like
he believes.
Yeah. So I guess, okay. So if we're talking about that specifically, my first question would just be, how can we determine what, how we know we're in the same Do you have to remember things the same way in order to know you're in the same timeline? I guess like you have to know, you know, in the universe. Like I would just start with what's the criteria we're looking at here to determine how you came to the conclusion? Is it because you remember things differently than what other people have said? Or, you know, I guess starting from there, but that's a long conversation that could go through a couple different chains of responses. So,
right.
I would say with something along those lines, there is always an element of pain to it. There's something painful. And so that's why you retreat into that. Or, it's not necessarily a retreat so much it is like you pivot away from what's painful to you and you take something that is a controlled environment. So you can say that you're from a different universe because you make the rules when you're in a different universe.
That's
you
right.
You don't have to worry about anything that anybody else believes because there's something painful behind that kind of belief system, and sometimes pathological. Sometimes what somebody is crying out for is a psychiatrist. Not always. I'm not saying that everybody who believes in a conspiracy theory needs psychiatric help, but there are places where it's so painful that you escape from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's usually what I see on that kind of level.
Yeah, people pick up conspiracy theories in times of isolation. Yeah, like people pick it up.
That's great.
People
reinforce that kind of behavior, positively reinforce that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's great. That's you doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good that you can still be a friend to him too, Josh, and be able to consider his ideas, because a lot of people who have these beliefs with conspiracy theories feel like they can't talk to regular people about it. That's why they call them sheeples and stuff. Like if you can show like, hey, I can consider your ideas and still disagree, that, that's helpful, I think. But anyway, Josh, thanks for calling in. I appreciate you talking to us about it, and I hope your conversations go really well in the future. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Cool. Yeah, and obviously, I figured people would be asking, how do we talk to people about conspiracies and stuff? But the interesting thing about your show is you don't do any talking to these people. You are just pure examining kind of Alex Jones and his rhetoric and stuff. And I just want to know, in between calls here, if Alex Jones wanted to talk to you, if he wanted to call up and knew about your show, would you want to talk to him?
How dare you? No, never.
Yeah, okay.
Never.
Yeah,
there's no point. There's just no point. He would just, if I bring up sources, if I bring up a differing opinion, he's just going to shout me down. Sometimes you cannot talk to somebody. That's simply not possible. And whenever that happens, I feel like you should make a podcast about that person and analyze everything that they say and distribute it to other people.
Well, you're following your ethics. Yeah, you're following your ethics really well there. I think your moral system is on point.
It really took a long time for podcasts to exist so I could explain that to people. But once they did, they really got it. Yeah, when I was in high school, I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay, so I got 3 more calls I want to get to.